Welcome to the Town Council special meeting, April the 16th, 2020. This is via electronic communications. We'll give a little introduction. The special meeting of Town Council is being held electronically as a provider under Code of Virginia, Section 2.2-3708, subsection A3, which permits public bodies to meet by electronic communications without a quorum physically assembled at one location since on March the 12th, 2020. Governor Northam declared a state of emergency for the Commonwealth of Virginia arising from the novel coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. The purpose of this meeting is to discuss the issues of short-term vacation rentals and to review recommended adjustments for the fiscal year 2020 budget. Audio recorded is being made of this meeting. The meeting is also being live streamed on Facebook, as well as being videotaped for viewing from the Times website after processing. Public comments will be accepted this evening via Facebook Live and emails to clerk@capecharles.org. Comments were also solicited by email to the clerk prior to this meeting. All votes taken this evening will be by roll call vote and recorded in the minutes. Any council members to leave the meeting or arrive after the start of the meeting must verbally note their attendance. Only essential business of the town of Cape Charles can be done in this manner. These procedures will remain in effect until the COVID-19 crisis has been alleviated. Do any council members have any questions about this process?
Okay, good. I just asked Marion.
Without hearing anything, can I get a roll call, please, starting with Councilman Buckholz?
Buckholz, present.
Holloway, present.
Bennett, present. Bannon, present. Gross, present.
Burge, present.
Let it be known we've established a quorum. Up next is the public comments. These are agenda items only, accepted via email to the clerk of capecharles.org during the meeting. Libby?
Okay, I've got a number of comments. First one is from Janice Korleski. It says, in my morning walks, I've noticed several vacation rentals occupied by out-of-state renters. My understanding was that vacation rentals would not be allowed during the stay-at-home mandate, and also a letter from our mayor. It is obvious that it is not being monitored by town officials. My concern is these out-of-towners are putting a strain on our community. Food Lion cannot keep shelves stocked with the necessities for full-time residents. In addition, do we know if these visitors are free of the virus? If they should become ill and require hospitalization, this would put undue strain on our healthcare system. Riverside only has 2 ventilators. It is my hope that the town and mayor will halt all vacation rentals until the stay-at-home mandate is lifted. Thank you for your consideration on this matter. This next one is from Margaret Van Cleef, and she actually sent 2. So I'm going to read the first one and then follow up with the one that I got yesterday afternoon. I appreciate the difficult choice and moves the town council and mayor have made to discourage tourist travel to Cape Charles at this time. I agree that it is in the best interest of our vulnerable community, by which I mean Cape Charles and ESVA in general, to restrict travel from other areas as much as possible. I'm concerned when I see people on social media stating that they have second homes here and that they should be allowed to visit because they pay taxes here. My worry here is not so much that they may come, bringing their own groceries and supplies, and keep to themselves in their own home, as we are all doing. It's the idea that paying taxes is what makes that okay. The virus doesn't care about taxes. It cares about social distancing and person-to-person transmission. So I am not suggesting that these people should not be able to visit their properties, but I would like to see the town issue an official statement regarding the appropriate way to do so. I would also like to see stronger wording regarding whether vacation properties should be available for rent at this time. There are vacationers in a cottage just down the block from me right now. Thank you for your time and for all y'all are doing during all of this. You are much appreciated. And the email from yesterday says, I'd also like to submit that I am in favor of making it a Class 3 misdemeanor to operate vacation rentals for as long as the governor's orders are in effect. Thank you. From David Gay, dear council members, I applaud the effort of the council to keep the citizens of Cape Charles safe during the current pandemic. It is a good idea to suspend all seasonal rentals until the governor lifts the current restrictions. If we all follow the rules now, we will all be able to get back to business as soon as possible. Thank you. Joanne Bowick, I fully support the town taking further action to eliminate short-term rentals and making it a Class 3 misdemeanor for those in violation. Enforcement is key. This is a difficult time for everyone, and I believe those that are continuing to rent their properties are doing so selfishly and putting our small community at greater risk. Community spread is the #1 factor in propelling COVID-19. It's frustrating to see out-of-town license plates from states that are known hotspots for the virus. Even in-state visitors are putting residents at an unnecessary risk. I appreciate that so many property owners of rental properties ceased operations before the request was made by town officials. It's not fair that some have chosen to ignore the initial request to cease rentals and risk that well-being of our community. Kathleen Byrne, as a resident of Sheridan, I am greatly concerned about the number of out-of-state license plates in the Cape Charles Food Lion parking lot. While I understand that tourism is a critical part of the Cape Charles and Northampton County economies, allowing second homeowners and renters to needlessly expose full-time county residents is irresponsible. Given the limited supply of essential items on local store shelves, local residents should not have to compete with visitors for groceries. Stay at home means stay at home. Stay at home means stay at your full-time residence. I'm not even traveling across the county line at this point. The majority of second homes and vacation rentals may fall within the town limits, but the potential danger extends beyond the town. I urge the town to address this issue aggressively to protect all of the residents of Northampton County. Lori Smith, I completely support the ordinance that would make it a Class 3 misdemeanor to operate vacation rentals for as long as the governor's executive orders remain in effect. Catherine Hardy Reed, Town Council is holding a special meeting on Thursday, April 16th, 6:30, to consider an ordinance that would make it a Class 3 misdemeanor to operate vacation rentals for as long as the governor's executive orders remain in effect. As a resident of Cape Charles, I would like to express my support for this ordinance prohibiting rentals and fining those who break the ordinance. I am very upset at the complete economic devastation we are seeing as a result of the COVID-19 virus, and returning to normal has to be a priority. Research shows that preventing the spread of the virus by staying at home order is currently our best defense and our best way to get out of this situation quickly. I very much want there to be a summer season in Cape Charles. In order to get there, we must follow the governor's executive order. I'm very unhappy to see anyone benefiting at the expense of the folks who are following the current guidelines. This inequality cannot be allowed to stand. Either we let everyone rent or we let no one rent, but an in-between state is not fair. Additionally, I am sick to think that a visitor could bring the virus to our small, resource-constrained area. Our rural health system is amazing, and so far they are not overwhelmed and are doing a great job taking care of us here on the shore. We need to keep it that way. Working together, we can be ready to reopen as soon as it is allowed. Having anyone bend the rules to their favor, no matter what their intentions, in one of the worst pandemics in memory cannot be accepted. Thank you to everyone in the town government and on the town council for your leadership in this difficult time. Anna Lee. Dear Mayor, Town Council, and Town Manager, I absolutely support an ordinance that would make it a Class 3 misdemeanor to operate a short-term rental unit in Cape Charles while the governor's executive order remains in effect. I also hope that our police department will have a list of all top tax property addresses so that they can monitor activity, and that a tip line will be made available so that citizens can report rental properties in use. It's disappointing, to put it politely, that some members of our community have prioritized a short-term financial gain over their own health and the health of their friends and neighbors. Thanks to all of you for your continued hard work to keep our town safe. Stephen K. Fox. I am writing to express concern about the haste of adopting the proposed ordinance to prohibit short-term vacation rentals in the town and to enforce the prohibition by creating a Class 3 misdemeanor, maximum fine of $500. While it is understandable that there is heightened concern surrounding the pandemic created by the coronavirus, I do not believe that such action is justified or may even be considered invalid for several reasons. Further research may be required to clarify some of the issues surrounding this proposal. The questions raised include the following. 1. Does a vacation rental introduce more persons into a housing unit than is already zoned residential and could be occupied by a family of several persons? A vacation rental does no more than fill the space, albeit perhaps on a rotational basis, introducing different persons. 2. Does the town council have legal authority to take the action against persons who, finding themselves vacationing in Cape Charles and renting, must observe the identical regulatory restraints already in place? For example, the council has authority to close the beach and public park to recreational use. The shops are virtually all closed. These situations may in fact deter vacation rentals without the necessity of council action. 3. Related to the concerns raised in question 2 above is the question of why the town would undertake creating a different class of persons known as vacation renters when in fact there is no regulation of permanent rentals. One could evade the reach of the proposed ordinance by renting for a long term, however defined, and then have the parties invalidate the remaining term of the agreement to rent. Also, are B&B rentals and hotel rentals excluded from the proposed ordinance? 4. Although I have not researched this topic in any great detail, it occurs to me that the proposed ordinance may violate provisions of the U.S. Constitution, which prohibits enacting legislation which affects the sanctity of contracts, known as the Contracts Clause of the U.S. Constitution. 5. Lastly, is the town prepared to underwrite the possible expenditure of public funds that may be necessary to pay for the taking of private property without just compensation? In effect, the council action may be deemed to be a taking of property, a so-called condemnation of property for public purposes. Thank you for your consideration of the issues set forth herein. I think caution and restraint should be observed. I am not a renter of vacation properties and have no stake in the financial results of such a prohibition, but I believe the proposed action should be viewed in the context of the rights of the property owners who engage in what has become part of the economic engine of Cape Charles. Mike Shepard, if the town enforces the short-term rental ban, will we be refunded our business license fees? Susan Item. One additional aspect of the short-term rental is that of the vacation property owner who is compliant but not by not renting, but instead visiting here with their families because their investment property is now vacant. In the past 2 weeks, I have spoken with 3 families that have said they are going back and forth from Northern Virginia to keep their kids busy and because they usually don't get to come here because they have it rented. If there are to be any consequences for vacation owners who allow others to use their houses, the same consequence should apply to owners themselves who don't stay home in their primary residence but visit their property here. Thank you. Brent Carpenter. I believe the town council is making a wise and prudent move to put a hold on the short-term rentals of homes and rooms in Cape Charles, Virginia, and I support the proposed ordinance. Though I understand this will affect the owners and businesses' bottom lines, I believe it is something that, as unfortunate as it is, must be done. Thank you. Elizabeth Gray. I vigorously support the proposed ordinance requiring all rental property owners and managers and realtors to fully and without exception follow the stay-at-home and all other directives of the Governor of Virginia until the current health crisis has passed. I commend our town management for recognizing those who flaunt public health guidelines for profit should not be permitted to selfishly endanger others. Patsy Harris. I would like to comment that the idea of making it a misdemeanor for rental property owners to rent their properties is a huge overreach. The state has closed all recreation and there are no gathering opportunities due to state rules, so what's the harm in having folks rent homes here? How can you make it a crime for people to use their property for the purpose it was intended? If this is allowed, where does all of this end? Jim Wood. Honorable Mayor and members of Council, I would urge caution as you deliberate the proposed ordinance shuttering short-term rentals through June 10th. Through several entities, we have purchased derelict properties in town and have renovated them, dramatically increasing property values. We have hired local vendors and paid substantial transient occupancy taxes. Also, let me be clear that in February, we voluntarily suspended renting through mid-June. The proposed ordinance is not equitable in that it allows hotels and timeshares to operate. I'm unaware of any evidence indicating that hotels present a lesser risk of the transmission of disease than a single-family home, especially given that hotels encourage the congregation of unrelated people unknown to each other, further increasing the potential of exposure. Also, while the town is collecting $100 inspection fees for short-term rental properties, it is not inspecting them, which is a de facto ban. Section 18.5 of the Town Code requires such inspections under the penalty of up to $3,000 in fines, so a refusal of the town to inspect means that many short-term rentals cannot legally operate while hotels can. As you can see from your projected reductions in revenues from meals, business, and transient occupancy taxes, short-term rentals are an extremely important part of the local economy. And realistically, no one is traveling in any great numbers, and most responsible short-term rental operators like us have suspended rentals for the foreseeable future. It appears that hotels in town have voluntarily closed their doors, but could reopen without any notice or permission. I would suggest that rather than criminalizing the rental of property, you encourage and incentivize private property owners to voluntarily comply. However, if you feel that it is still a threat, then treat all transient occupancy in town the same way and close hotels and timeshares with the same penalties. To do otherwise is not fair or equitable and puts local government in the position of favoring one business over another. We're all in this together. John Wengler. I would urge caution as you deliberate the proposed ordinance shuttering short-term rentals through June 10th. Through several entities, we have purchased derelict properties. It seems like this is the same one as Mr. Jim Wood. They must be partners. So. Then Chuck Little. My name is Chuck Little, and I am one of the owners of Cape Charles Vacation Rentals at 307 Mason Avenue. My company has been complying with the council's request to cease short-term rentals within the town until June 10 and have been issuing 100% refunds to the many renters that had already booked reservations prior to the current restrictions. At the present time, we are not taking any new reservations for check-in dates prior to June 11 and will adjust as restriction dates are modified. I am, however, discussing 3-month rentals with individuals that are seeking places while they are on the shore for employment, including a healthcare worker that will be working at Riverside Shore Memorial. I have not done the research, but I believe the town considers only occupancies of less than 30 days to be short-term rentals. I assume the purpose of tonight's discussion is to approve an ordinance to codify the restriction of short-term rentals during the period of the governor's declared state of emergency and travel restrictions. As such, I trust the restrictions will be placed on short-term rentals and not on particular types of business entities. I would also like to hear from council how the town plans to police compliance and enforce such an ordinance if one is passed. Respectfully submitted. Okay. The last one is from Christine Wengler. My concern is about the hotels and bed and breakfasts. I want to make sure that the hotels and the bed and breakfasts also fall under these guidelines that you are setting for the short-term rentals, that there are to be no rentals until June 10th, 2020. It seems that the hotels have voluntarily closed their doors, but it does not appear that they are included in this proposal to shut down all rentals until June 10. So if that's the case, they can open their doors at any time. So I want to make sure that they're also included in this. Please clear this up. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Libby. That was a lot. So up next is the short-term, item 4A, short-term vacation rentals and enforcement. John, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, as we know, on March 30th, the Town Council approved the declaration of local emergency, and following that declaration, you, Mr. Mayor, issued a formal request of all short-term rentals to cease operations until the state authorized travel again, currently June 10. Most businesses have complied, but not all. And it has been reported to us that flow of people coming into town is still occurring. It does appear to be unfair that the majority of our businesses are doing the responsible thing and complying with the town's request and taking the financial hit, and the few irresponsible businesses are continuing to profit by it. As a result, the town council requested that I prepare this ordinance, bring it forward, that would make it a Class 3 misdemeanor for all short-term rentals. And to address some of the comments that were offered, this would include hotels, it would include bed and breakfasts. It would not include those with property interests. So those with second homes would not be included. Those timeshares that have a property interest would not be included, but timeshares that are rentals would be included. We have, with regards to its legitimacy, this ordinance has been developed and cleared by our attorney. It has been determined to be legal and defensible. The maximum penalty under a Class 3 misdemeanor would be $500 per offense, and an offense in this case would be classified as per day. So every day that a rental was continued would be a different offense. I will say that enforcing this ordinance will not be easy. I'll be very, very blunt about that. We will be relying on, as one commenter suggested, a tip line to help us keep track of that. We simply do not have the manpower to go to every single business and check. The tip line, if you will call it that, is going to be the police non-emergency line. That number is 678-0458. So if anybody witnesses anyone in violation of this ordinance, should council pass it, you're requested to call that line and report it, and we'll go take care of it. Believe that is it, Mr. Mayor. Staff is recommending approval of this ordinance.
Okay, ordinance and ask for a motion and then a second. Ordinance 20200416, an ordinance temporary closing short-term rental operation in the town of Cape Charles, Virginia, in order to protect the public health and safety by preventing the further spread of the coronavirus COVID-19. Whereas on March 12, 2020, the governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia, Ralph Northam, issued Executive Order 51, declaring a state of emergency due to the spread of COVID-19, a public health threat disaster. And whereas by ordinance adopted March 30th, 2020, the Council of the Town of Cape Charles declared the COVID-19 pandemic to be a local emergency and a disaster, and invoked emergency powers given the localities under Section 15.2-1431 and 44-146.21 of the Code of Virginia. And whereas 15.2-1102 of the Code of Virginia and 2.2 of the Town Charter authorizes the Town of Cape Charles to take necessary and desirable action to protect the public health, safety, and welfare. And whereas COVID-19 spreads person to person, transmitted via respiratory droplets, and can be spread from an infected person who does not have the symptoms to another person, and therefore unnecessary person-to-person contact increases the risk of transmission and the spread of COVID-19. And whereas testing indicates that COVID-19 can remain on certain surfaces for several days, unless such surfaces are thoroughly cleaned and sanitized against the viruses. And whereas, in order to prevent the spread of COVID-19, Governor Northam has issued Executive Order 53 and Executive Order 55, ordering, with limited exceptions, individuals to stay at home, closing all public beaches for all activity except exercising and fishing, closing certain businesses, including recreational and entertainment businesses, and restricting the operations of other non-essential businesses, prohibiting all public and private in-person gatherings of more than 10 individuals, other than the operation of business not required to close, and the gathering of family members living in the same residence, and mandating 6 feet of separation among the individuals other than family or household members or caretakers. And whereas the emergency restrictions imposed by Governor Northam shall continue until June 10th, 2020, unless extended or rescinded earlier. And whereas, in order to suppress person-to-person contact and other conditions that are dangerous to the public health, and to ensure adherence to Governor Northam's executive orders, the Council of the Town of Cape Charles, Virginia, finds it necessary to prohibit, with limited exceptions, the operation of short-term rental operations. And whereas the Town Council further finds that the protection of all public health and the prevention and the spread of communicable disease is an essential government objective and constitutes as a legitimate public purpose. Can I get a motion?
I move
So
that we-
moved, Grossman.
There's a second page.
Second.
Okay. All right, discussion. I'm going to start the discussion, and then I'll follow with Councilwoman Birch after me. I've had this conversation with John. One of my biggest concerns is policing. Everybody knows, all 6 council members knows me well, every citizen in town knows me well, and I believe in treating everybody equally. And I really want to make sure we get, if there's violators, I want to get them all. I don't want to get any, just get 1 or 2 here and we'll make it look like special treatment. So whatever we got to do to get all of them, I want to make sure we got to do it staff-wise. If that's a police cop car or 2 cop cars or 3 cop cars running around each street, just want to make sure that we get everybody, whatever it takes. I don't want to leave anybody out if there's violators. That's my 2 cents worth. I just want to make sure to treat everybody fair. So with that being said, Councilwoman Bird, do you have anything?
I do. Hey, John, I have a couple questions maybe you can answer. You alluded to that there aren't many current violators, you don't think. Do we have any idea how many people, how many property owners there might be that are currently in violation?
I do not have any hard data on that. It's anecdotal, just based on what I'm hearing around town.
Okay. So the way that the second question is related to the way that this ordinance is worded, and it says, and I can't go back to it, I'm sorry, with the like set up here and go back to where I annotate, but anyway, I believe the word is used as closing. So does closing mean, for the purposes of these folks, no advertising, no reservations, taking no reservations, or just no current occupancy? Because it doesn't say exactly what that means in that ordinance.
The intent, obviously, is occupancy, is to avoid having visitors here during the prohibited time. And that would presumably include taking reservations. Advertising, I don't believe would be appropriate and wouldn't be covered by this, as long as they don't take reservations or allow occupancy during the prohibited time.
We'll get to you, Councilwoman Holloway.
Yep.
I have a comment on that.
If it's on that point, I'm interested, please.
Okay. Taking reservations is ambiguous as a B&B owner. We can take reservations after June 10th, but
Correct. I'm sorry. I should have clarified that. I apologize.
Okay.
Well, that's my point.
Right.
Is that, are you closed, not operating? Not you, Tammy, but not doing any, are these places not soliciting, not doing any business at all? Or are they just not allowed to have anybody there? We just need to be, if we're going to enforce it, we have to be very precise about what this ordinance would say, I think. So that's my other question. I think that I'm thrilled that we had so many comments, and I'm really glad that people could engage even in an electronic format to give us their thoughts about that. And I too have thought a little bit about Mr. Fox's comments about the possibility of if we do have violators, there wouldn't be anything that prevents us or them from having longer term rentals and then with no penalties for cancellation. And people could still do that. I mean, and we can't really get around that feature that I know of anyway. Let's see here. I am certainly, for the record, please don't misunderstand my questions to mean that I am not in favor of us doing everything we can to protect everybody in our town, all of our citizens, all of our property owners, everybody. And I wondered, though, if we had looked, because I haven't, and I don't honestly know, if there is a violation of the governor's executive order already in place that we could use, the stay-at-home order that he had issued, so that people could not be here. They had to stay in a primary residence. I haven't looked at Executive Order 55, John. Have you, or did you get advice from our council about that? And is there a penalty associated with not staying at home? Therefore, that would give us a mechanism to say folks can't be here in this rental capacity.
It is my understanding that there is a citation for that, but that it's enforceable by the state, not by the town. My understanding is that because of our limited authority, that only the state could enforce that. If we want
Well, couldn't the state police do that then?
they could, but the state police are fairly thinned out right now. So yes, to answer your question though, yes, they could do that.
Do you know what that penalty is?
Not with
It's a class 1 misdemeanor. I read it earlier.
Pardon me?
It's a class
Class-
1 misdemeanor.
A class 1 misdemeanor. It's not a class 3 misdemeanor. Okay. Here's something that I wanted to throw out just for thought. Trying to match our goal of safety with the ordinance that we're trying to put together, or any kind of measures that we're putting together. The ordinance, if I believe, says we would pose this as a class 3 misdemeanor, but it also says or injunction, or it says something like quote unquote other remedy, right? You know what it says in our ordinance? If anybody has it handy.
Yes.
Okay, so one of the issues about that could be that, well, first of all, you have to write a summons, okay? If we find a violator, and we have to get it on the docket at the General District Court. And right now, the General District Court and all the court system, top to bottom, are only hearing like emergencies and protective orders and things like that. So right now, they're not setting any cases until after most of them, at least until after the I want to say like the 27th or early part of May or later. And there's, it's yet to be seen if the court system is going to go and keep them with the June 10th deadline either. So we would be a while getting into court with the violator, which would mean the penalty doesn't make people leave. You see what I'm saying? And other than just the aggravation of it. So if we enforce it with a summons and for violators, we get it there, it will be up to a judge to decide what would happen to that person, whether they have a class 3 misdemeanor, which it can be up to $500, or an injunction of some sort, leave, I suppose, or make them leave, or other, and I don't know what that means. So I guess I'm just pointing that out to say we don't want them to do that for a day, let alone have to write a summons, tomorrow, and then it not get into the court system until, May 25th, May 15th, pick a day. Okay, do you see what I'm saying? So I'm a little bit concerned about the lag in the time between finding somebody and getting something done. You ever thought about that, Steve? I don't know that.
I don't have a thought about it. I don't share your concern.
Okay.
I think this is a unique situation, and we're trying to protect citizenry of Cape Charles.
Sure.
And if you can't bring a penalty immediately. It's, that's just because of where we are with this pandemic. And I think we need to take the action. And then the judge hearing it will be whenever that happens to be. I don't see that it doesn't, people aren't just going to stay because they're not going to court tomorrow. My thought on that would be that once they are issued a citation, they'll be asked to leave. And if they don't leave, then they'll be issued a further citation the next day. So, I understand where you're coming from, but I don't think there are concerns of that being a big issue.
Okay,
So-
I just felt like I wouldn't want us to think that because we have a penalty today, they have to leave tomorrow. Because our goal is for them not to be here at all and to voluntarily not come. And, let's see. I guess that was it. And just the enforcement piece, of course, John, you'd already touched on that, and that was a concern too. Not only about the particulars, but exactly the manpower to do that and how that would be done. And enforcement would be tough. So I'm certainly in favor of our goal here. Please don't get me wrong, guys. I'm just trying to think through it practically.
And
Thank you.
if I could just add one more thing to that train of thought is that the penalty would not be assessed to the renter. It would be assessed to the owner of the property, which makes it even more difficult because we would have to track down who rented that property to that individual, and it would be the property owner, the business owner, that would actually receive the citation. So that does complicate our enforcement even more.
But it shouldn't be hard to track them down because they all should have business licenses.
Correct. I'm just saying it's another.
We have an ownership kind of piece, at least to start with.
Well, what do we do? What do we do in the case where the owner decides to let someone stay there? It's not rented, but lets them stay there. What's the difference? I mean, it's not being rented, so there's no money exchanging hands, and they stay there for a week. What's going to stop them from doing that? What's going to stop the day trippers from coming in here? There's so many different variables and holes in this thing that we're focusing on one entity of this whole thing. There's so many different issues that this can detract from different angles. I mean, Mr. Woods points out the fact that we got the section 815. How many rental properties have been inspected this year? Do we know that number? Any?
Not many, no.
If none of them have been inspected, then they're all in violation. We can get them right there, and that's enough right there. That's $3,000 if that's the case. What I'm getting at, I'm not opposed to all this, but we got to look at. But there's so many holes in this thing right now, from a standpoint of communicable diseases. You can have someone come in from Anacog or wherever, Virginia Beach, go get a pizza at Dead Rise and pass it off to one of the people delivering the pizza to the car, sneeze on. How are we going to stop that? I mean, there's so many variables in this. We're looking at one aspect. We got to look at the big giant picture here, and we can't just shut our town off and have people coming in, with their primary address under license. We got to look at this thing from a bigger picture. This is one little aspect, and we're enforcing this, but we're not enforcing something else. We're still going to have people coming in here. They could end up going to, whatever store's still open. I mean, there's grocery stores that are open, buying stuff. Who's going to stop someone from Virginia Beach coming over here and doing that? Passing it on to one of the people at the cash register, who in turn passes it on to everybody else. So, I mean, we got to look at this as a broader picture here, and this doesn't cover everything, is what I'm getting at. So,
No, we're just trying to address the one issue,
I know,
and then we have
but
to.
but it's not going to solve the issue. We're to this plate almost too late in the game. In my opinion.
I would agree that we should have done this earlier. Yeah.
I know, but what I'm getting at is we've got so many other variables that are causing. I live in a neighborhood that basically half of it's owned, and about out of the 107 units here, I could tell you right now, 2/3 of them are probably rentals or people staying here that I have no idea who they are. You know what? I don't run into them. I keep away from people. I walk my dogs. They do their things. I run on a treadmill in my garage. I mean, and there's a lot of second homeowners here from different parts of the state, and they own it. So, I mean, how do we control this? How are we going to stop? Like I said, someone just say, go use my property in Cape Charles. I'm not going to charge you rent. So we get around the little loophole. So that's not even addressed in there. So if they stay there for a week and they're not paying rent, we have to prove that they paid the rent in order to go through this ordinance. That's how I'm hearing it, correct? I mean,
Well, they would be submitting
is all
transient occupancy tax. I mean, I think we have to do we can't solve everything.
I know, but
there's a lot of this going on in the world. Can I
I
finish?
understand that. I don't want
I
to
just
sound
want
like
to
the
finish my
bad.
statement.
I know.
That we can do something and get something started, and that's all we can do. We just need to make sure this ordinance does that. I agree in the sense of the non-payment people, but when you get into conversations, if somebody gets it from Dead Rise or somebody gets it Food Lion, that's not what we're talking about or voting about now. And we can do only what we can do with
I know, but this to me is a feel-good situation. I hate to say that, and you know what? You might not get elected for it, but right now it's not going to solve the general problem with what's going on.
No, I don't think it is.
Polls.
But it will have,
I don't know.
I do.
Yeah.
We would have seen more cases already by now in town. We had one that came in here from somewhere that was on a vacation. They quarantined themselves. And of course, they're still on the list of being contaminated or whatever, but that was 21 days ago. So I'm assuming they're clear now, but they won't update the website. So in reality, we really don't know how many people are infected in the county. We're not getting real clear answers here. So once they go on that list, they stay there. I don't know if they're doing it to keep it there. I don't know. But they're not clearing the people that have been, they've had it for 3 weeks, 4 weeks. You know what I mean? And they stay on that list. Why? I don't know.
I don't know, but I kind of, we've kind of been taking this one step at a time. And I hear what you're saying, Andy. And I don't disagree with what you're saying. There's a whole bunch of other implications to stopping anybody from driving through this under state roads.
Yeah.
And we.
Main Street's a
Chris
state
has a
road.
visitor. It's his dinner delivery.
I think that we have been doing things one step at a time. And realistically, we asked, most, as John pointed out, I believe most people did the right thing, but there's obviously still some. Me and John stopped a couple on the beach from Maryland, going down there with beach on ice chest and 2 chairs last week.
Yeah, I know that, but if we could look into who's had inspections and who has not had inspections, and find out if they have renters, that's an easy way of getting them out of there, or start fining them immediately. That's to the homeowner, because if they're doing it illegally, we've already got an avenue to do that. And if none of them have been inspected at all, that's our. Because what happens once they lift this and we've cut off all these reservations, how are we going to get back into this? It's going to take to fill these reservations. Later, the end game of this whole thing. Now we're chasing our tables. Right now, like Tammy, I know you've got your stuff. You're taking reservations in June and July, correct? So
Right.
how do we know this doesn't keep going?
But let me just talk for a few seconds. The way operationally, we talked a little bit about that. The operationally is, yes, you can market and you can take reservations, and Virginia Tourism has a whole campaign that's will be here waiting, and when it's safe to come, and that's whatever that jurisdiction is. Sheila, to your point, I don't think some of our bigger issues are Virginians with the stay home order. It's other states and coming from there. They're just violating their stay home order. We could most of what I hear and what we heard tonight are out of state tags that are coming to escape kind of different environments, which that's what we are. We provide escapism. That's why we're attractive. But from an operational perspective, from a B&B, the way that we're handling it is we're taking reservations, but we're saying that's if the order is executed at June 10th and we're able to be open. We haven't canceled Memorial Day. We kind of go a month out at a time. So we have some May reservations. I wait, and because I don't know if the governor's going to move that back. So, but I've been in contact with those people saying we currently are under a state, stay-at-home order, and so therefore we wouldn't be able to have you. But that's our decision as a B&B, and we made that since March 13th. And everybody, I think, has made their own decision up until now. And as John said, I do feel that most of folks did that, but I also feel like there were some things that people that didn't even know that we asked that. It went out in Nixle and on Facebook, but it didn't go to property owners like I requested. So some of those people are not present as owners at all. And so I bet if we compared, there's probably a lot of them that barely even knew that it existed. So if we move forward, we have to figure out how we're communicating this before we enforce, for sure. I think that it's safe to, what Andy was saying is, when will we be open? We're going to be behind the game. I think that doing the safe thing now is going to have what we need later, and we'll be ready for doing that. We definitely don't want to tell people they can't take reservations after June 10th. I think that would be really the wrong thing to do.
Can't we, to get the people who live away and own the properties, if we use the water bill list to set, let them know where we are right now. They're getting dribs and drabs from their neighbors if they live in Roanoke or West Virginia, things like that. Just send it out that we're closed. We don't cover that the realtors are all behaving, which they are, I'm sure. But they're not covered by this, you get picky. But I think for people who are living away from here, I'd like to know where are we in the virus. And the best list we have is the water and sewer list, utilities.
Well, that's pretty true. And Tammy, to touch back, I did a conversation with John. And John had actually spoke with Charlie Kolakowski, the letter you received, and that's from the county. So the county sent one out to all of the residents or the people that has those businesses in time. So that's the reason why the town never sent one as well. It's kind of redundant to send two. That both going to say the same thing. But we can definitely move forward. We can send one from the town itself. Any more?
All of Cape Charles. Someone on Facebook was asking, does this include all of Cape Charles, meaning all three of our communities? Bay Creek, Marina Village.
Yes.
Most definitely.
Yes.
It does not include all of the 23310
Right.
area. It only includes Cape Charles.
I know that, but I saw the question come up several times, so I think there was something.
Basically, the municipal town.
Yep.
Yep.
Whole
See,
town.
Celia, you had something else?
I do. I just wondered, but listening to everybody talk, if we had a program of communication that, Chris, like you said, if every single person with a utility account had this information, as Tammy, you said they don't. If Andy's component of, if we went and if every person that has vacation rental did not have their inspection, stop them right now. We can do that. We've got an ordinance on the books. We can knock that in the head immediately. If our tip line or other was in place and we knew that there were violators and we're not sure how many, we think, as Johnny says, anecdotal at this point about how many and all that, turn them into the state police right now. Let the state police go under the governor's order and speak to it right now. And if they're Virginians or whatever, I mean, at least these are some things that we can do today, right now. I'm sorry. And I guess the last thing, I don't really have any ideas about how we could incentivize people not to do it. I'm heartened by all of those owners that have voluntarily participated, and I'm thankful that they have. And, you know, we are all in this kind of together, and I would hope that if we could do the things that we know that we can do something about right now, that maybe showing everybody that we're taking all of these pieces, that would work. I appreciate Steve's comments. I'm just afraid that we'll do this and it won't make any difference.
Correct.
Okay? That's the only thing I'm concerned about.
I have a question for you. So the governor's stay-at-home order was for Virginians. So what happens to people from Delaware
Right.
that the governor has no control over because they're from Delaware that come down here? So it's, I mean, and then they show up at their door in Delaware.
Right. I mean, I don't know the answer to that, but the fact
They
is,
still
we
gotta
don't know
follow
how
the
many
state
people
law.
are from where. As we just said, we don't know who the violators are.
Oh, it's got to be the same setup as using a radar in the state of Virginia. You know, you got to follow the Virginia state law. Once you come into the Commonwealth, you got to follow the law.
And the executive order, and I'll pull it up if you want, but I believe it says for all Virginians, he actually said it in his thing, for all Virginians, and he didn't say Delawareans or Marylanders, he said all Virginians to stay at their primary residence. That was his exact words.
Right.
Press conference.
Well, of course, he doesn't have any authority over the other ones, so
Right.
I get that, but you know, we don't know where they're from or how many there are. We just don't want them to come and
How many people live in Cape Charles that have different residents, other place, secondary homes that they use as their primary residence that live here half the year? I mean, I'm sure there's a few of them.
Yeah, and this ain't about, to me, this is not about second homes. This is
I know.
Like
That comment just had to do with the last, because
Right.
they're technically legal residents might be somewhere else, but they might live here most of the time, which is against the law anyway.
Well, there's
Yeah.
a lot more part-time owners that declare this as their full-time residence. We have quite a few that do that.
Well, I would have a hard time telling a property owner to not come to their property. I mean, I don't know. It would have to be pretty dire for me to back that. I'm sorry. I just be patient.
And that to me makes the short-term thing just kind of irrelevant, because it's one or the other. It's the same principle. If you got people coming down different places, primary residence versus, you know, a rental, or hey, stay at my place. You know, they're still coming here, and that's half this town that's who lives here. Half the time, sometimes full time, some part time. They're going to come here.
I don't think it's fair that we ask, and the majority, 75%, let's say, followed these guidelines and are sacrificing their income and getting through this and doing what they have to do to make that happen. This is that next step to enforce that. Will we get 100%? No. But we might get another 20%, and that could really help. That could make the difference. And it's one thing. I think we have many challenges to this whole piece, but this is one thing that we can do now. And clearly, as you hear from our residents and constituents, and we've heard this for the past couple of times we've met, this is what they're asking us to do.
Yeah. For me, I'm a very appreciative for every business we have in town. But our first priority is to me is the residents of this town, and protecting the residents and protecting the businesses too. But I think, you know, we have to look at all angles.
Mr. Mayor, could I add one more thing?
Yes, sir.
So I'm not trying to weigh in on the merits of whether to do it or not. I'm speaking strictly from an operational point of view. When the discussion regarding the use of the inspections as the mechanism, I have concerns about that only in the extent that it's not something that we can throw the switch on. It takes an enormous amount of time to do all of those inspections, and we have one inspector. So if we're going to use that as the mechanism and not allow any inspections until, let's say, June 10th, on June 11th, we can't have everybody legal. We can't do the inspections that fast. So I'm just saying that from an operational point of view, that's cumbersome. That's all I'm saying.
I understand, but I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
But it is an ordinance, I believe, that reads that it's the property owner's responsibility to have gotten their rental inspection every 2 years, right?
No, every year, short terms every year.
Short terms every year. Okay, thank you.
It all depends. And not every vacation rental, and I believe, like the Worcester Farms and Bay Creeks, if they're in that zone or whatever, they don't have to be inspected. Because I called Jeff, who was the manager of the Worcester Farm, to get him to come over and inspect them, and he said he didn't have to inspect them. It was
Well, I would check that because I was a vacation renter at one time. I'm not doing that anymore because it's too much of a pain in the rear.
Agreed.
Short-term rentals have to get a yearly inspection. All short-term, all of them. That's what I was told. Look it up.
I can tell you what he told me. It
I
has
know he
something,
told you, but look at.
it has something to do with the PUD. I can tell you, because I actually called him to get our inspection, and he said I didn't need one.
I would double check that. But John, I get what you're saying. I totally agree. We should continue to go forward with the inspections to prepare for it. But we at least have a record of who's been done and who hasn't. So if they're in violation now, we have a mechanism there. So.
But we can't be selective in who we say can do it and who can't. If I do an inspection tomorrow, they're now legal. So we can't stop them from then renting this weekend. So that's what I'm saying. Is that if that's the mechanism you want to use, we'll do our best to use it. But if we can't do any more inspections until this thing opens up again, it's going to take a spin up time for us to get everybody legal. That's all I'm saying.
Correct, I get that. I mean, we can postpone it.
Yes. I don't think it should be the mechanism. The mechanism is the ordinance that we're going to, utilize and then implement.
Or the state law.
I understood that the inspection was just a piece of that in almost double checking and going through that. But I agree with you, John. I don't know how that would be kicked in at this point with staff resources.
Well, and so John, you would propose under the enforcement mechanism in the current proposed ordinance, it says the town manager enforces it or his designee. And who is that going to be?
Police department.
All right. Any more discussion?
Yeah, I'm waiting to go around the table here. This is gross. Now that we're finished with Councilwoman Burge, okay?
You're such a good example.
You are.
Ooh, I get to keep talking.
The way I see this is it is a step change that's needed at the present time. The question I would have is violations, and we touched on this. Is the summons going to the occupant or owner? And I heard owner. But what do we do then with the occupant? Do we remove them once discovered?
I do not believe that that's what the ordinance authorizes. All we can do is penalize the business owner for bringing in there.
All right, I have no problems with that. I just want to be clear that occupant can continue on until the owner calls and says, hey, get out because I'm accumulating whatever.
Exactly.
All right. The one other thing I had was the wording in our ordinance space was maximum $500 a day. I think you need to settle on what will be that. Not that we need to settle on it, the words here. But you need to set in your mind such that we're not fumbling around when we get to that first person and go, well, maybe it's 250. Maybe situation is whatever. It needs to be, and if it's multiple days, it's going to be multiple days.
Sheila wants to respond to you, Paul.
I've had a few episodes with this myself, and under the criminal code, like a misdemeanor like that, that's totally the discretion of the judge. It just can't be more than $500. So we can think that it's going to be $500, but it may not be.
Oh, okay. So it's left up to the judge to ultimately decide. Okay,
Yeah.
good. All right.
Yeah.
That takes the decision making out of our hands. The
got-
start date, the
a
start
question.
date on this is my concern. We're saying this is starting effectively today. If we sign this, how are owners going to be notified? And I'm expecting some of these will be occupied over this weekend, if not tomorrow. I don't know, we can all of a sudden just say effective tonight, no one can come into these particular short-term rentals effective tomorrow. I think there's got to be some official start date and some official notification to owners of these short-term rentals. Some official mechanism.
Paul, you just brought up something. How are we going to deal with the federal mandate of non-eviction? How are we going to deal with that one? Anybody thought of that? Isn't there a non-eviction clause in some of this stuff? Does it cover? It doesn't say anything about short-term, long-term rentals. It covers rentals, but they have a national do not evict going on right now. How are we going to deal with that?
Well, what I'm hearing is that we're not. The people can continue to occupy with the owner understanding that they are piling up their violated amounts here.
Yeah, but they're violating it. How are we going to get that from the court system when it's mandated that you can't evict them and you're not allowed to penalize them either? But
Well, I think you're talking eviction. Here we're talking eviction from a rental unit, short term versus a person's residence.
I know, but we might want to do that.
Tammy?
Federal guidelines.
Yeah,
are.
because in short-term rentals, there's not a lease contract. There's not a,
Sure.
I'm renting this from January 1st to December 31st in that way, as far as in doing that. Those are long-term agreements. Short-term rental falls in a totally different category of transient. It's exactly that. It's transient. It's not permanent.
But they still have a contract.
resident.
They still have a contract.
But they're transient. They're not a permanent.
It's
They're
different.
not a per.
That's the difference between a contract and signing a lease.
I don't know. Sheila, what do you think of that? I mean, it's
At least
mean-
this contract.
Yeah, or an agreement, yeah, long
exact contract. It's a contract.
All right, so come back to my question with regards to start date and owner notification.
So, John?
Well, that's an excellent question, and
It's a loaded
my
question.
impression is that everybody was notified not to do this on April 1st when the mayor put out the notice not to do it. So this is not a surprise to anybody.
Well, you don't know that.
Yeah, because I
You don't
think
know
there's
that.
some folks that did not have the means that we talked about to get that information. When it came
Everybody
the first time.
everybody was sent a letter back from the county. So all
Right, and it was
so-
delayed after us doing it.
But the point is that everybody should have been notified by
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, well, John's right in that there's been public notice that people didn't avail themselves of it for one reason or another. As it comes back to that old adage about ignorance of the law was no excuse. Doesn't mean that you can't have an ordinance. There's a fairness, Tammy, in giving people every opportunity to know that you're going to do something as detrimental as this might be perceived. But
If
Yeah, I
I
think-
could, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm done.
My suggestion would be, especially since it's left to the town manager to implement, my suggestion perhaps would be that you give a first warning before you actually give the citation. If there was a one warning, then they can't say that they didn't know.
Could we make the start date, typically these are Saturday to Saturday or Sunday to Sunday rentals. Obviously, I don't know what the other B&Bs, I know the hotel is closed, so it doesn't impact, we're not taking reservations, it wouldn't affect the day, but for short-term rentals, if you could make it effective tomorrow at midnight or something like that, that gives, there's going to be people who are scheduled to come here on Saturday.
Well,
It is adopted by the council on the 16th day of April, 2020. I think we're overthinking it. You know, the difficult part is enforcement. We already know that. We just need to get this enacted, and then we can work through the details of, you know, if it is a warning, if you, whatever. But, you know, we can what if this for the rest of the night, and we're not going to have any more answers than we have now.
I agree with Steve.
I agree.
If whatever you do, John, just do it the same for everybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, any more discussion? I'll work around the room. Anybody? Chris, you got anything?
No.
Steve? Anything
I'm
else?
good.
Tammy? Andy?
Yeah, I've said mine.
All right. We'll start with Constable Buckholz. Roll call.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
You read all the whereases, but you didn't read the therefore.
Well, it's got to be voted on and adopted first.
Well, you should read the entire ordinance if you're going to read it.
Sure.
Okay. Now, therefore, be it ordained by the Council of Town of Kid Charles, Virginia, that notwithstanding any charter provision, ordinance, regulation, or policy to the contrary, and except immediately cease operations, it shall remain closed for so long as the restrictions set out in Executive Order 53 and Executive Order 55 are in place. The following short-term rental operations may continue to operate in strict accordance to with all executive orders issued by the Governor of Virginia and orders of public health issued by the State Health Commissioner. Timeshares as defined in 51.1-2200 of the Code of Virginia and similar occupancies by persons having an ownership interest in the property, provided that some properties are not rented to short-term tenants. Any occupancy of short-term rental by a person or persons required by state or federal order to quarantine in place, provided that one, the short-term rental was occupied by such person or persons prior to the adoption of this ordinance. And two, the owner of the occupant provides the time manager or his designee suitable evidence or explanation of the need for the quarantine. This ordinance shall be enforced by the time manager or his designee. Any persons or entity willfully violating or refusing, failing, or neglecting to comply with the ordinance shall be guilty of a Class 3 misdemeanor. Each day of the violation shall constitute a separate offense. The ordinance may also be enforced by injunction or other appropriate remedy. The ordinance shall be effective immediately, and unless rescinded or extended by the town council, shall continue in effect for so long as the restrictions imposed by the Executive Order 53 and 55 remains in place. Roll call vote.
Ugh, God, I hate these things. Buckholz, yes.
Holloway, yes.
Bennett, yes.
Bannon, yes.
Grossman, yes.
Burge, respectfully, no. I don't think that it addresses our concerns, and I think that we don't have an enforcement ability to meet our goal by having the ordinance. But I say that with all due respect to the rest of you.
Yep, I agree.
Let it be known that it's unanimous.
It is not unanimous.
Not, it's 5-1, I'm sorry. Okay, John, up next is FY 2020 budget adjustments.
Right. So as you could imagine, the businesses that are suffering so greatly aren't the only ones suffering. We're feeling the pinch as well. The town receives a significant portion of its revenue from business-related taxes, and since business is down, so is our revenue. So we've been looking at how do we finish out this fiscal year, are the revenues that were in the budget that the council adopted will not be realized this year. So I prepared a report that's attached to this item that shows the types of revenues that we anticipate being short, and our proposal for how to balance that budget. Now, typically, on a smaller scale, I would be able to just do these and report it back to council. But considering we're talking about a total amount of over $200,000, that is significant. And this is your budget that you passed, and it's the town's budget. And so I wanted to bring this forward, have you a chance to look at it, where you'd have a chance to ask questions, and I would appreciate your concurrence with my plan. I'm prepared to answer any questions, and Debbie is also on the line who can answer questions that I cannot.
Well, you're stretching the dollar pretty well. It's depressing when you see what it's going to be like. Just one thing, Central Park, was that any money put into Central Park? I couldn't find it in the budget.
We did not touch the Central Park portion of the budget.
Okay.
So it says this is an action item, John. You want us to vote on this?
I would request that somebody make a motion to concur with the town manager's budget adjustments.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Any more discussion on this? Councilwoman Burge?
No, I think you did a really great job pairing this thing as best you can. A very difficult project and a very difficult task, painful to everybody. And Deb, thanks too. I'm sure that you were working on that. I know that it has great impact not only to the amendment of the budget that we have for this year, but going forward. And so it'll pose some even more significant challenges in the budget process for next year. So thank you for jumping in on that already as your first task. Not an easy one, and certainly not the same situation in which you were hired, huh? So thank you for doing that.
It gets better.
Yeah. Thank both of them.
It will.
Yep. I know Deb. I know Deb's worked with him closely on this, so thank you both very much.
I need to jump in. Deb did all of this. She deserves all the credit.
It's nice to have good leadership. It helps keep me on track with good leadership. I appreciate it.
Well, anybody else got any more comments? Paul?
I was talking to John yesterday or the day before yesterday about how he's, really whittling down a lot of money. But I said, just brought it up about everyone's getting this money from the president. Are small towns supposed to get money? And I believe John said that there is a movement there.
Who cares? Mm-hmm.
There is a bill being introduced in the House of Representatives that would provide aid to towns of less than 5,000. But that's still just a proposal.
Forever.
Yeah. Councilwoman Holloway?
Oh, no, sorry, I was talking to Jim. He wanted to know how long for dinner. Sorry.
Anybody else have any more discussion about this?
I just wanted to jump in and thank Deb as well. This is a significant budget shortfall in a town that has historically not had any extra money. So I don't want anybody to think that this is an easy decision to make.
Right.
To take this much money out of our current year budget. This is a big sacrifice for a lot of people, and I just want to let those people know that, I appreciate this, and the fact that we're able to do this at this point and still maintain a balanced budget is a testament to what we're giving up as well. It's a big loss for the town.
I do have one comment, Smitty.
Okay.
I want to just comment that the Cape Charles Main Street money was just not reduced. We were asked to figure out what we could cut in the budget, looking at what our responsibility is overall in marketing in particular. We weren't able to cut as much as we wanted to cut because we felt that was our responsibility in moving forward, and we needed to do that. But just as we're doing in our home budgets, Main Street runs pretty lean as it is, but we cut down things that were our physical things that you would see. So Chris, you're not going to see those things you want to see on Main Street. There's going to be stuff that's not happening in that $14,000. And we did as much as we could because we're part of the bigger team. And I just didn't want it to look like the town just came in and cut that. It was a very good working relationship to make that work.
And we also lost the VTC grant because of this.
Yeah, we
on
were
top.
supposed to be able to apply for $10,000 to support the new website. So we're $10,000 shy going into the start of next year because that grant was cut. But we're hoping that they're going to replace that with different money. So we're already in the contract, so we've got to figure out how to pay for it somehow.
If I could just jump into, I would just like to thank Main Street for their cooperation with this. When we approached Main Street with this, it wasn't a oh no, we can't do this. It was an enthusiastic, what can we do to help? And they sharpened the pencil and came up with a number for us, and it was really appreciated. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Yep. So, any more discussion? Councilwoman Burge?
Do we have a motion?
We had a motion in a second. We're in the discussion. Did we have a motion?
Yes.
Yes.
It would be.
Okay, and I support the motion to amend the current fiscal year budget in keeping with the town manager's recommendations.
Grossman?
Grossman, yes.
Bannon?
Yes.
Vice Mayor?
Bennett, yes.
Holloway, yes.
I didn't skip you this time. Buckholz, yes.
This one's unanimous. All right, so before I ask you, Jared, I want to say a couple of things, if y'all got a minute. So tonight's Councilwoman Burge Sela's last council meeting. She's turning in her iPad tomorrow. I just want to say, this time 15 years ago, exactly this month, 15 years ago, I briefly met Councilwoman Burge as I was walking in as harbor master and she was walking out as town manager. And I'd like to say, from what I know now, I wish I got to spend a couple of years with her back then. I would have learned a lot more, I know. She's probably one of the smartest, well-rounded, well thoughtful people that I know that I've met in my life in my 50 years. And plus, she's got an accent that's a little bit similar, and I'm gonna miss that. I'm the only one up here with the accent. But with that being said, I think I can speak for a lot of the residents of the town to thank you for all your years of public service to the town of Cape Charles. Sela, it's appreciated, and we know that you'll continue your public service with your judgeship for Accomack and Northampton County. So thank you very much, Your Honor.
Thank you, Smitty. You guys, I have to say that really it's an honor to have thrown my name in the hat. I know a couple of years ago when we were a little bit short of a town council member, and I appreciate y'all's good humor and your patience with me and being prickly on things. It is a very bittersweet moment, but I am happy to move on to the judicial branch. It's such a tremendous opportunity, and I'm thrilled with it. I don't look thrilled at the moment, but I'm thrilled, and looking forward to a more public investiture at some time later when everybody can get together and we can do that and maybe celebrate it a little more officially. But we've had a lot of good people, a lot of good staff in the town, and so it's a staff that really keeps things going here, and you guys know that. But I'm particularly happy that the council, this one and previous with the previous mayor also, were able to start thinking about setting strategic priorities And if there's ever been a time where we need to look back at what those were, as we have to cut the budget, that makes life so much easier. That these are the things that matter the most to our citizens, and we cut them. And so, John, I'm glad that you're here. Deb, I'm thankful that you're here, and Libby, all of the staff that we have. Appreciate all the job that you do. Appreciate the good humor and friendship and collegiality that I have with each of you, and just honored to have served our town. Thanks.
We'll be thinking of you tomorrow when you take the oath.
Yep.
Thank you.
I give you a standing ovation, but I'm in my shorts.
We're not doing that.
Yeah. Well, if there's nothing else, can I get
On that note.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
Second.
Or
Got it.
fourth.
all in favor? Then we got a roll.
Aye.
Oh, start with you, roll call, Vice Mayor Bennett.
Aye.
Grossman.
Aye.
Bannon. Holloway.
Aye.
Buckholz.
Aye.
Burge.
Aye.
So, thank you all very much. Have
Good night.